Welcome to Wisdom Unveiled. Just a quick note before we begin. This is a translation based on conversations with Iranian philosophers, so some nuances might get lost. We do apologize if there are any discrepancies.
Absolutely. And this is it, our final deep dive in this series looking at Khajeh Nasir al-Din Tusi.
That's right. Today, we're zeroing in on his ideas about practical wisdom, specifically this concept he called Tahdhib al-Akhlaq.
Which translates roughly to the cultivation of character or, ethics.
Exactly. And our aim here is really to give you, the listener, a clear picture of Tusi's ethical thinking and why it still matters for personal growth without hopefully getting too bogged down in dense academic stuff.
It feels like a good way to wrap up our look at Tusi. He saw wisdom, hikmat, as, fundamental. And he split it, didn't he? Theoretical wisdom, understanding things, and practical wisdom, knowing how to act.
Right. And it's that practical side we're focused on today.
Definitely. How to actually live wisely.
Okay, but Tusi didn't just leave it as practical wisdom, did he? He broke it down further.
He did, yeah. He saw practical wisdom having three main parts all connected. First, the one we're digging into, Tahdhib al-Akhlaq. That's personal ethics, working on yourself, refining your character.
Okay, personal ethics first. What were the other two?
After that comes Tadbir, al-Manzil. That's about managing the household, the family unit, you could say. Domestic economy.
Right. Self, then home.
And then the third level is Siyasat al-Madina. Politics, basically. How to govern the city or the state. Social ethics on a larger scale.
So it's like building blocks. You start with yourself, then your family, then society. It feels very logical.
It is. And they're deeply interconnected. There's a hierarchy. We heard this echoed in the Maarefat discussions with Dr. Dinani and Dr. Larijani. You can't really run a good household without having your own act together, right? That's self-discipline from Tahdhib al-Akhlaq.
Makes sense.
And likewise, you can't have a just society without individuals working on their ethics and well-managed family units. For Tusi, it all begins with the self, that inner work.
Okay, so let's stick with that foundation then. Tahdhib al-Akhlaq. He wrote a really important book on this, didn't he? Akhlaq-i Nasiri.
That's the one, the Nasirian ethics.
Yeah.
It's a hugely significant work in Islamic ethical thought. Now, he definitely drew on earlier thinkers like Miskawayh and his Tahdhib al-Akhlaq.
The purification of morals.
Right. But Tusi's genius was in the synthesis, how he brought things together.
What was so special about his synthesis? What did he combine?
Well, what's really striking is how he blends insights from philosophy, from reason, with guidance from divine revelation, the Sharia. He didn't see them as opposed.
Ah, interesting. So not reason versus revelation, but reason and revelation.
Exactly. Complementary paths to ethical understanding. That's really a hallmark of his approach.
Okay, so if you want to cultivate your character according to Tusi, where do you start? What's step one?
It begins with actively understanding virtues and vices, and then embodying the virtues, actively avoiding the vices. It's not passive knowledge.
So it's about doing, not just knowing.
Absolutely. It's a constant process, an ongoing effort.
Yeah.
You have to actively do it, integrate it into how you live.
Right, a continuous practice. And what's the ultimate point of all this effort? What's the goal of Tahdhib al-Akhlaq?
The end game for Tusi is achieving what he calls his deli nafs, self-mastery.
Self-mastery.
Becoming the ruler of your own self, your own soul, your psyche.
That sounds quite different from how we often think about mastery, which is usually about mastering external things, skills, wealth, status.
Precisely. Think about it. Our world pushes us to conquer the outside, get rich, get famous, climb the ladder. Tusi turns that inward. He asks, what's your real asset? Your bank account or the state of your inner self?
A powerful question.
For him, true lasting value comes from that inner control, that inner dominion.
So what does that look like? How do you become the master of yourself in Tusi's view?
It means reaching a state where your intellect, your reason, the akla, is firmly in charge.
Okay.
Your rational side guides and governs your desires, so the kwahishat, and your sort of baser instincts, the gariza.
So reason takes the reins from impulses and desires.
Exactly. He uses this great analogy. It's like you are both the commander and the commanded within yourself.
Ah, I like that. The commander and the commanded.
Your higher reason gives the orders, and your lower part's desires, urges, are meant to obey. It captures that internal struggle we all face, doesn't it?
It really does. And he connects this self-mastery to freedom, which is something everyone values. How does that work? How does mastering yourself make you free?
Well, Tusi's argument is that real freedom is self-mastery. You can only be truly liberated, truly free, if you have control over your own desires.
Otherwise.
Otherwise, even if you're a king, you're still a slave to your passions, your whims. You're not truly in control.
So external power doesn't mean freedom if you're internally chaotic or driven by every impulse?
Exactly right. And this idea comes through so beautifully in some of the Persian poetry discussed in our source material. It captures that feeling of being like alienated from yourself when you just serve your bodily desires.
Yes, those verses were quite striking. Can you remind us of them and how they fit here?
Sure. The first one goes something like, "In the land of others, do not build a home, do your own work, do not do the work of strangers." It prompts you to ask, what's my real work, my true purpose?
Okay.
Then it asks, who is the stranger? And the answer is, your earthly body, because it is from other and is your sorrow. The idea is the body, or rather its unchecked appetites, can feel alien, leading you away from your true self, causing suffering.
The body as the stranger. That's powerful.
And the last verse hammers it home. As long as you feed the body with rich and sweet things, you will not see the essence of the spirit, you foolish one. Indulgence blinds you to your deeper self. It leads to what they call gurbat as quish.
Alienation from oneself.
Yeah, being a stranger to yourself. And that feeling, that disconnect, is a big reason to strive for self-mastery.
Wow, those verses really make the point. Now, thinking about Tusi's overall approach, philosophers like Dr. Dinani and Dr. Larijani, what did they admire most?
Oh, they had immense respect for his intellectual power, his ability to just synthesize vast, diverse fields of knowledge. They particularly highlighted how Akhlaq-i Nasiri really elevated ethical discussion, but weaving in Islamic teachings so thoughtfully.
From the Quran and...
From the Quran, yes, and also the wisdom in Nahj al-Balagha, the sayings and letters of Imam Ali. It wasn't just tacking religion on, it was a deep integration of philosophical reason and revealed wisdom.
So that blend, Greek philosophy and Islamic revelation, was key to its impact.
Absolutely. And that role of divine guidance, the Sharia, it wasn't optional for Tusi.
Right. How important was it? Did he think reason alone was enough to become ethically perfect?
He valued reason immensely, saw it as crucial, but ultimately no. He believed divine revelation was needed to reach the highest level of ethical perfection.
Okay.
The Maarefat sources pointed to a key verse in the Quran, Surah Baqarah, verse 151, and talks about God sending a messenger to recite verses to purify people, yuzakikum, and teach them the book and wisdom.
Ah, I see the connection.
That purification, taskiyah, links directly to Tahdhib al-Akhlaq, purifying the character. And teaching the book and wisdom connects to Sharia and Hikmat, philosophy or wisdom. It shows that synergy Tusi saw.
That verse ties it together nicely. And we should probably remember the context Tusi was writing in, right? It wasn't exactly peaceful times.
Not at all. He lived through the Mongol invasions, utter chaos and destruction. The fact that he's not only survived, but managed to navigate that world, even advising Hulagu Khan, it shows his wisdom wasn't just theoretical.
It had to be practical.
It had to work in the real, very harsh world. It makes his insights on self-governance and ethics feel even more grounded, I think.
Definitely adds weight to it. Now, there was another work mentioned besides Akhlaq-i Nasiri, Awsaf al-Ashraf, Attributes of the Noble.
Yes, Awsaf al-Ashraf. It's maybe less famous, but it goes deeper into the, let's say, spiritual path, the mystical side of self-purification.
So more advanced.
Generally seen that way, yes. Aimed more at those already seriously committed to a spiritual journey, seeking higher levels of realization. You could think of Akhlaq-i Nasiri as setting the essential ethical groundwork.
And Awsaf al-Ashraf builds on that.
Kind of explores the more profound mystical potential of living those ethics fully. Dr. Dinani and Dr. Larijani noted it's highly regarded in Sufi circles, sometimes compared to huge mystical works like Ibn Arabi's Futuhat al-Makkiyah.
Wow, okay. So that points to a real depth there.
It suggests a whole further dimension to Tusi's thought on ethics and spirituality, beyond the fundamentals, a path towards deeper inner transformation.
Fascinating. So as we kind of pull this together, thinking about Tahdhib al-Akhlaq, what are the main takeaways for us listening today?
I think the core message is that this ongoing work on your character, Tahdhib al-Akhlaq, it's not just nice to have, it's foundational. Foundational for a good life, for yourself and for the community.
And central to that is self-mastery.
Absolutely. Mastering the inner world, not just chasing external control. Tusi insists that this inner power, this inner sovereignty, is the real power, the real wealth.
Which feels quite countercultural today.
It really does. In a world pulling you constantly outwards with endless distractions and desires, Tusi's challenge is incredibly relevant. He asks you to prioritize that inner work, to ask yourself, How much effort am I putting into mastering myself versus mastering things outside me?
It's a really important question for reflection, and it sounds like there's still more we could explore from Tusi in the future, perhaps.
Oh, definitely. His views on household management, politics, even his poetry. There's more there. And maybe just as a final thought, the conversations we drew from ended with a Persian verse hinting at those deeper mystical layers in Awsaf al-Ashraf,
Oh, yes.
suggesting that this whole journey of cultivating the self ultimately connects the soul to something much larger, to the divine. It's a kind of beautiful, reflective endpoint to his ethical vision. Yeah.
Tusi's ideas, especially around Tahdhib, al-Akhlaq, and mastering yourself, they really push back against that constant chase for external approval and success, don't they?
They absolutely do.
It's an invitation to look inward, to see cultivating your own character as the most vital task for a flourishing life. We hope this discussion has given you, our listener, some food for thought on how you might become more of a master of yourself day by day. Thanks for joining us for this final deep dive into Khajeh Nasir al-Din Tusi.